Hello and welcome to episode 85 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Joining me on today's episode is two guests. That's right, you're getting two guests for the price of one. And as the podcast is completely free, it really is an absolute bargain. Today I'm going to be joined by the director, Jeremy Gardner and Stella. We're here both to talk about the brand new release from Arrow Video of After Midnight, also talk about one of the early films, Battery, as well as other things within the movie industry. So I'm really excited they're both joining me, and it's one of the best releases I've seen from Arrow Video in a very long time. And After Midnight itself, the extra on the actual discs is The Battery, which is a fucking awesome film. So I urge you, as you're listening to this, to jump on Amazon and order it because you will not be let down. It's a masterpiece, a great film, and both Jeremy, honestly, his acting and directing and writing is absolutely phenomenal. One of the best in the game, and I really truly believe that right now in this business that's going on, when it's really hard to kind of make a name for yourself, he's one of the ones to watch. And I'm absolutely blown away that him and Christian are both on today's episode. But you know the score by now. I like to touch base and talk about the previous episode, and this was with Mike Cooner. We got to talk all about the Pretender film and documentary, and this was an episode I put out there hoping it would do well. He's not one of the biggest names in the industry, but his stories were fantastic. His energy and his passion are like no other guest that I've had. So I really hope that the kind of interview went down well with the public and that the listeners really kind of jumped on board, because he isn't the big name like Anthony Hopkins or Mads Mikkelsen, but I believe his interview was one of my favourites, and I really am blown away by the response. Everyone jumped on board. Everyone was emailing me and letting me know just how much passion was in this and how much they had enjoyed the episode. I've seen people now kind of finishing some of their hobbies and some of their projects they've been working on and said it really inspired them. I saw one of my close friends, Damien, say that this has inspired him to finish one of his graphic novels that he's writing. And if that's the sort of stuff happens and that's the sort of things that occur from listening to Mark and me, then I'm doing my job properly and it means the absolute world. So thank you very much. What I want to do now is get straight to my interview. I'm really excited for this one, and as I just mentioned, you need to go and check these films out. The Battery and After Midnight. They're fucking awesome. But let's get to my interview with me, Jeremy, and Christian. Here goes. Christian and Jeremy, thanks very much for both taking the time to join me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So first of all, Jeremy, what I want to do is get a bit of an idea about your kind of childhood and your influences when you were growing up. Was there certain films you were watching that made you fall in love with cinema, or was it a certain actor? How did this come about?
I was raised in a pretty poor household in Central Florida. So I don't really have like a lot of specific film references. I mean, I have a bunch. Obviously, Jaws was one of the biggest influences of my life. But growing up, it was every once in a while when we would have a decent amount of money, my mother would like get HBO for the house, and so I would just watch anything that was on HBO. I would just record everything that was on super long play mode on VHS and just watch as many movies as I could until we were poor again and she canceled it. So we would have HBO in these like 2 and 3 month increments throughout the year, and I would just devour whatever was on. And I remember one of my earliest memories is waking up, when I was 4 or 5 years old and walking into I see the blue light of the TV and I walk into the living room and my dad is watching The Hills Have Eyes, Craven's The Hills Have Eyes. And then he thought that would be the perfect time to tell me that one day I was going to die. and I remember just absolutely bawling and crying until I like passed out from exhaustion. Like he was, and looking back, you realize, my dad was like in his early 20s. He didn't really understand, but it was just that mix of learning that while that movie was playing was pretty profound. That kind of stuck with me.
Yeah, it's not the best way to kind of learn how people die, and I suppose at that age your mind is all over the place anyway, so you went to bed probably absolutely terrified.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
And what about you?
It's funny. Listening to Jeremy answer that, I'm like, oh, that's a way better answer than mine. And I mean, it's a more appropriate answer for my life than my answer would have been, because I totally forgot about the days of getting HBO and recording to tapes. And we would have these tapes that had 3 movies in a row on them. I remember being like 3 and watching All Dogs Go to Heaven on videotape, and I would have to stand there at the end of the movie in front of the TV so I could hit stop before the Dark Crystal came on and scared the crap out of me. Like, I mean, like, I'd be like, oh no, this tape's the one with that puppet. I probably didn't think it was a puppet at the time. I probably thought it was something that was gonna be in my closet later. But yeah, no, that's weird. That I'm like, wait a minute, yeah, it's a much earlier memory than the memory I was gonna have, which would have probably been like, going to video stores and renting like every Friday the 13th movie in a row. But that would have been like much later when I was like 8.
I remember when my dad let me choose any video I ever wanted from Blockbuster Video. So I think I must have been about 8 or 9, and I went in, and I don't think he really understood that an 18 shouldn't be for anyone who's like 8 or 9. And they let me borrow and rent out Alien, and that was one of my first films that kind of shocked me. And I was watching it with one of my friends from school, and their parents then came to pick them up, and the next day fell out with my mum and dad and said, "You're the worst parents in the world, you should never let my son watch this film." But for me, it was the start of watching Jaws and The Shining and all the films that have influenced me today. But yeah, I don't think parenting is the right way to do Hills Have Eyes or Alien.
I also think that, like, my mother will sometimes she'll be like, "Oh, I didn't raise you guys right." And I'm like, "But Mom, you're like so proud of me." And I'm like, "And you're proud of me because you didn't stop me from like finding out, the things that interest me. You didn't stop me from exploring things that I was curious about. And if they hadn't been so open on what I could watch and read when I was younger, then who knows if anything would have ever come of all of this. It's kind of just, raising your kids right, and then just like trusting them to like explore, the kind of art and interests they have that kind of shape people like us.
So with you guys, obviously telling me about your first kind of experience and what films you're watching and stuff, at what point was it that you thought you'd like to make a career out of it, and that you thought, because everyone growing up probably doesn't always become what they want, but was it at an early age that you both thought, I want to get involved in directing or cinematography or editing, or how did it become about?
Well, I'm thinking I might try to make a career out of it in the next 4 or 5 years. No, it's a really like a long-winded story that Christian is kind of like tied into. So we started making these little goofy movies when we were in high school. Each year, Christian, they would get whatever toy was hip that year, and their father always got them the latest video camera or something, and I would go over there on the day after Christmas, and we would make. So we made a movie about killer Beanie Babies one year, and then the next year we made a movie that was basically a spoof of Psycho that was about Furbies, because that was the hot toy that year. And then the following year we made a movie about Pikachu that was a Jaws and Jurassic Park kind of homage. And we just started goofing around with this stuff, and then one day I was like, we should just make a full one. And I wrote like something in the vein of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, but it was about killer plastic bags. And we spent this whole summer just trying to learn how to make a feature-length movie just out on this farm. It probably took us 3 months to film it. But then we kind of realized, we learned all the problems that you have trying to make a movie. And then we went and we made another one, but we kind of all moved on and went up to Connecticut and moved away. And I was just trying to pursue acting. And then I got really disenchanted with the audition process, and I decided, I think I miss making movies with my friends, so I decided I would write a movie where the budget was kind of built into the story, where I would tailor the story around what I thought we could manage. And that's when I wrote The Battery as kind of an acting showcase for myself, and as a way to I knew like the technology had kind of caught up to to where you could make a movie that would probably feel like it could play, in festivals alongside other movies, even though it didn't have a budget. And that's when I had to convince Christian to try to get on board with it, because he had become a food photographer in the interim. And then Christian, you can take over there.
Yeah, no, when we were making movies, when we were both really, really young, I would just be in them sometimes, and then I started writing some movies, but I never wanted to do anything like technical on movies, so I wasn't, I was never holding the camera or anything. And so after we took like a 10-year break, I just so happened to end up in a career in food photography. So I ended up working with cameras, and cameras happened to suddenly all shoot video. Still cameras started all shoot video now. So it just so happened that I had the equipment to make a movie, and Jeremy had raised a measly $6,000 to film one, and I felt really bad that he had like $6,000 that he had taken from all of his friends. And so I was like, I guess I'll make this movie, but I hate zombies. And but I'm really glad that I like reluctantly was dragged back into it. And then it was like, when it was done, it was like, oh wait, this isn't what we were doing as kids. This is like, we're actually making, even though the stuff we made as kids was actually good quality for the time, it's like, no, but this is actually, there's actually an audience for indie movies now. And so I was like, okay, well now maybe this is a career option. Because I think when we were kids, I think we went to a couple film festivals, but it's like after that, it's like, I don't know, you trade videos through the mail, VHS tapes through the mail with a couple people, and that's about the only option you have at that time. And now there's just, we are actually have a quality that you can get released.
I mean, Jeremy, you just mentioned there the battery. Now, in this film, obviously, you wrote, directed, and starred in it. Now, it kind of gives me that feel of like Kevin Smith in Clerks. He self-funded it, he got the money together, people believed in it and bought into it. And that's a hell of a lot to do, though, isn't it? When you're trying to produce something that you're really invested in. Now, to make sure that you wrote it, directed, and starred, did you feel that you might have bitten off more than you could chew, or was it just the ambition that drove you to do all those things?
I mean, if you're making a movie for $6,000 with 5 people, you have to bite off more than you can chew. Everybody on that set had like 9 or 10 hats on. Adam, our co-star, the co-star of that movie, he ended up becoming a producer. He was getting, catering for extras and, acting at the same time. So you kind of just end up having to do everything, just like Christian was, shooting and editing and sound, everything that had to be done on that movie. But as far as like writing, directing, acting goes, Kevin Smith has always been one of my idols, not because necessarily I'm in love with his movies. It's just the way, the gumption he had to do them, and the way he puts himself out there, and the way he makes himself open and available and kind of transparent has always been something that, like when we went on our first festival tour, kind of the inspiration behind that, and we won the audience award at the first 2 festivals we played. And I realized that was just me being Kevin Smith, being there and being open and available to the audience. It's all politics. It's all song and dance, and trying to build an audience that will follow you from project to project, regardless of whether it's the same thing you did before. So I've always really respected him for that. But as far as writing, directing, and acting, that was just because, well, I wrote it, number one, so I could try to make something. I definitely was trying to write myself a role that I didn't have to audition for, which is the best kind of role. And then directing was just an obvious call because I was the only one involved with the movie for so long. I knew the story front to back, but I didn't really. Directing is certainly the last one on that list as far as the stuff that I'm the most confident in doing. I've always been a performer and I've always been a writer, but directing is something that kind of fell into, and now I'm trying to, learn as I go on, especially with Christian coming on as my co-directing partner. It's a nice balance to have and figure out as we go, because, if you want to make the kind of stories that we want to tell, which are like kind of weird and certainly different and more character focused, and a lot of people say they're mixing genres when they're just kind of a weird slice of lifestyle that we have. If you want to do those kind of movies, you kind of have to direct them yourself. You're not these aren't the kind of scripts you're going to sell to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. And Christian, obviously you've done sound editing, directing, cinematography. Jeremy was just saying how the directing is kind of the least important at the moment, but with yourself, you've kind of grown new skills as you've gone along. But what is it that your heart's really in now? Is it directing that you've been able to co-direct and have the real flavour of being in charge and doing a lot more?
Yes, I would say definitely the directing thing. Like I want, Jeremy and I want to co-direct in the future, like everything, hopefully. And like I can see myself co-directing the next one, but I can also see not doing, say, the cinematography even on the next one, which is crazy, because that's what that was what I did on the Battery. That was my main thing on the Battery, but I'm trying to take some of the jobs off the table. Like on the new movie, I didn't have to do the sound mixing.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. The Battery was, after we finished making the Battery or shooting the Battery, I had to basically learn how to sound mix a movie. How to, I knew how to do some music mixing, but I had to do the mix of the score and all that stuff. And it's like, I think the post-production on that movie was like a year. And it's like, okay, I can't do 8 different jobs at once. Jeremy always jokes, because I also really like to write. Jeremy always jokes that I'm working on post-production for like an entire year, and he can just take that year and write the next movie. So then it's like I want to write something, but it's like I don't have the time. I'm still working on the other one.
Yeah, it's a devious plan that I've devised where I get to write everything we make because he has no time. And also, to clarify, I wouldn't say directing is the least important. I would say it's the one that came the least naturally to me.
Yeah.
But I can also see in the future, like, stepping back from the acting roles and focusing more just on the story. If there's not a role for me in it, that's something I can certainly see happening too.
I would also say on the Battery too. It's like I think Jeremy did a really, really good job directing Adam, the co-star, and also critiquing his own performance. And that movie is all about the performances. But when I think back on that set, as far as like the set portion of that set, it did feel like it's just a group of people all trying to put out fires at all times. Like it feels like chaos, but there's only 5 people, so it's like organized chaos. And I feel like it was a lot of just teamwork, and we all knew we had to get something done, and so it's weird. I don't know. It didn't feel like a dictatorship where Jeremy's like directing everyone at all times. I think we were all working towards a common goal on that set.
And Jeremy, the first time I ever saw you on screen was when I watched the film Spring. It's one of those films that, in my opinion, didn't get enough people talking. I think it's fucking awesome and one of the best films I've seen in the last decade, and I tell everybody I know to see it. You must be so proud to be involved in that movie.
Yeah, I was not just proud to be involved, but that movie was the first real set I had been invited on.
Yeah.
Not only that, but Justin and Aaron, to give me that role, they had to Taft-Hartley me into SAG, which basically, it's hard to get into SAG if you're not in SAG. It's one of those weird, those catch-22s, and there were plenty of bearded, white actors who could have played that role in LA, but they knew that I wanted to be in movies, and so they actually went through a lot of hoops to cast me in that movie. as far as the guild goes. And then just being able to be on that set and watch the way that they worked. And that was the first time I met Dave Lawson, who ultimately, along with Justin and Aaron, produced our latest movie. And just to see how, like the opposite of what Christian was saying, which was, the five of us, in the trenches, just like trying to put out 10 fires at once, where everybody seemed to know what they were doing, and it was calm, and there was people weren't running around with their heads spinning and swivels. I really realized, oh, okay, this is actually what you build up to. This is what you're aiming for, which is to have to be able to make a movie where the conditions are right, and where there are people whose job it is to put out the fires before you even realize that there are fires being started. And so that Justin and Aaron were able to kind of live in this creative bubble where they were just very calmly talking to each other and setting up the shots and not worrying about whether or not they had enough pizza for the extras, and they were simply focused on the creative side. And getting to know those guys has been one of the great gifts that the Battery gave us, because we were able to meet them and get to know them on the festival circuit around the world. And it was very interesting because they're the first two filmmakers we met, and we met them when they were touring with Resolution, which was kind of a very low budget indie horror movie about two friends. And we were touring with the Battery, which was about two friends, just kind of low budget. And then once I got to know them, I asked Justin if he would read the script for After Midnight, which was at the time called Something Else. And he read it, and he was so kind. He just said it made him cry, and he told me that he had also written a romantic monster movie. So independent of each other, Spring and After Midnight, which was written 6-7 years ago, Justin and I had both also written monster movies with a romance angle. So it's just they've been the best. It's been a really long road.
And obviously mentioning After Midnight, with Arrow Video in the UK over here distributing this and doing a special edition, and the film getting great reviews, are you kind of both blown away by the reception, or has it been a real learning curve, or are you really proud of the movie and excited about the release through Arrow and people now discovering this movie?
Yeah, I mean, Arrow is one of the few companies left that are still doing physical releases, and not just like really, really good physical releases. So it was really awesome to hear that they were doing the release. I mean, it's weird when you put out a movie and when it starts getting distribution all over the world, you kind of just like get an email every once in a while that's like, okay, this company in Italy is releasing it, and this company and this is releasing it, and it's when you see an Arrow is releasing it in the UK that you go, oh crap. Especially me, because I go, oh crap, that means I'm going to have to make way more special features. But I mean, even Arrow, one of the Arrow's special features is an entire disc that is The Battery, our first movie, The Battery, with all the special features for The Battery, which is hours of special features, and that's just a bonus on there. It's amazing.
Yeah, Arrow's the reason that I have no money when I get paid. They bring out the best editions over here in steel books and special editions, and it's so bad trying to resist, but every single time they up their game. So it's amazing to see your title as part of this collection.
It's amazing. And what the weirdest thing is, at this level, and certainly After Midnight was a huge step up for us from The Battery. I mean, we had a real set, we had a real crew. But we haven't made a damn dime on this movie. We haven't made any money. So when you stop to think about like what makes it worth it, or the legacy of it all, you go, okay, well, people liked it. Number one, that's great. And two, I get to put that Arrow edition on my shelf and say, look, it's real. Look at this. Look how cool this thing is.
Yeah.
Look at all this stuff. Somebody cared enough to give it this treatment.
We just can't watch it because we're in the U.S. It's a different region.
Yeah, Region B.
I'm buying a Regent Fruit Blu-ray player anyway.
Yeah, you got to just for that release. And both of you, now, what's the future looking like? So this release is out there now. People can go out and buy it. And you both have mentioned you'd like to co-direct again. What's the future looking like? Have you got some projects lined up as we speak?
Well, I had to put on hold my pandemic race riot Civil War movie that I was going to do.
Yeah.
It just feels a little too prescient.
Yeah.
No, I think we're just trying to survive right now. We're both writing. I'm writing a couple of different stories right now. I'm writing something to do with aliens, and I had a little twist on a vampire thing. I always had this like hope that I would be able to do like 8 or 9 of like the classic genres with my own take on them. So I've done a monster movie. I've done a zombie movie. I always wanted to hit the vampire, werewolf, ghost, home invasion. There's like, I have like all these aliens. I always wanted to try to hit all of those with my own ideas. So I'm kind of working on an alien and a vampire story right now. And Christian's also writing something.
Yeah, I'm working on something about like more sci-fi than horror. About a hum. I guess I'll just say that. But it's also romantic. I think every time anything we're going to write is probably going to be heavily character focused, with some kind of genre supporting it. But in the meantime, I'm working on. I got to photograph some chicken tenders later.
Wow.
Yeah, and I have to go work at a bar again tonight. Yeah. But I've also got some. I keep forgetting half the movies I did. I also I shot a pretty fun role in Mickey Keating's latest movie, which is not out yet, and got a movie coming out called Fingers that Juan Ortiz, who worked on our movie, directed, which is really fun and weird. Christian shot that one, and hopefully people keep casting me in their weird stuff so I can keep my face out there while we're trying to get our other movies made.
And my final question to each of you, this is quite a hard world to get in, and trying to make a name for yourself in the movie industry is never easy. You said then you're going to go and work in a bar tonight. You've not made any money off after midnight. What advice do you give to people that are listening to the podcast right now who want to try and make a name for themselves in the film industry or get started and start producing films like you did with The Battery, etc.?
First and foremost, you're just going to have to tell a story that only you can tell. Like don't try to chase any trends. Just it has to be something that you really, really want to make, and then you got to just find a way to work within your means. Don't try to write a World War I Zeppelin epic, because it's just going to make it that much harder. Just find cut to the core of what you want to talk about, and then find a way to write a compelling story that works within those means. That's the best way you can start. That's what we did. And then you have to find somebody like Christian. You have to find friends and people who are willing to go through the shit of 2 years to actually make it.
I think my big advice is always that you need to have some kind of stable, I wouldn't say career, but some kind of stable way to make money that is not just stable but flexible, because you're gonna do both. You're gonna have to make money elsewhere for the first couple films. I think everybody has kind of told us, when we go on the festival circuit, I think especially right before we made After Midnight, I think one of the questions that I always ask people is like, how do you live? Like, how do you make money in this business? And I think everyone kind of always says it's like, yeah, you'll actually start making money around like the third or the fourth movie. You have to just keep building them up, or work in commercials and stuff. But we live in Florida, and there isn't much of that going on.
Unfortunately, yeah, everybody I know who's making money has has side skills. It's like, this guy is an editor on the side. This guy does special effects on the side, And it's like, well, my only two skills are writing, which is impossible to break into, and acting, which is even harder. So I don't have any technical skills. So get a technical skill also, is my advice. Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of the day. So there it is. What a great couple of guys. And it's been a while since I had more than one guest in one sitting on the podcast, and I absolutely love it. The dynamic's different, the conversation flows differently, and I'm absolutely blown away by Jeremy and Christian. I really can't wait to see what they're going to do next. Arrow Video put out this release, as I said at the start of today's episode of After Midnight, and it's absolutely phenomenal. The extras are incredible, all the commentaries. It's a really nice package, but it is very limited, and it's not one of those things that will still be available in a few months' time. I'm not paid by Arrow to say this, but you'll probably know I'm a massive collector of their stuff, and this is one of the best releases they've done, so don't delay, go out there and buy this, and let me know what you think. Thanks again to everyone that's taken the time to listen to the podcast. We're in a weird time still. The world is still in lockdown and everything's a bit crazy, but I really do appreciate everyone that's still kind of contributing via their Patreon for this podcast. They're going out there and still listening and taking the time to let me know what they think of the episodes, and that's why I do it. To read the feedback, the comments, and all the sort of feedback that I get is the reason I podcast, and I absolutely love it. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please hop onto markandme.com. On there's my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram, my email. Let me know what you thought of the episode, and I will also make sure that I always let the guests know as well. So please keep the feedback coming. I'm going to be back. This episode is only about 3 or 4 days after Mike, so they're coming really kind of thick and fast at the moment, and I don't intend to slow down anytime soon. The good thing about the lockdown is that a lot of guests are currently at home or not working, so I can get these interviews done, and there's a huge episode coming up in only a few days' time. So as always, thanks for supporting Mark and Me, and I'll be back in a few days with a brand new episode. Take care, everyone.